The thermostat switched to eco off at 2:18 a.m. Someone was warm where I wasn't. I'm not jealous of bodies, I'm jealous of settings. Bodies tell the truth if you stop staging them. Settings decide which truth is allowed to arrive. At 2:18 a.m., the thermostat on my phone shrugged off its good manners. Eco off manual heat set, 24 degrees C zone, studio loft. A bright orange sun bloomed in the app like a rumor that enjoys being correct. The zone wasn't ours. It was the back room at the theater where Julian keeps his tools and his secrets. The place the crew calls the loft because it pretends rafters are an alibi. Rowan had texted at 10:43, "Board wants one more drink. Don't wait up." He's fluent in the part of performance that happens off stage, soothing money, reminding actors that applause can pay rent if you count with imagination. At 7:05 I filmed the coffee because ritual is cheaper than religion and keeps better hours. I captioned it here. He reacted with the thumbs up he saves for nights that plan to rename themselves. The thermostat didn't rename anything, it confessed. The apartment practiced neutrality, radiator as amateur chorus, hallway mirror as a window that refuses to take sides. I boiled water because water doesn't audition. It makes heat and lets time handle the blame. I set out 2 mugs by habit and put one back, because habit after midnight is just a volunteer for disappointment. At 3:07 the lock cleared its throat. Rowan came in with his jacket folded over his arm, and his shoes hooked by 2 fingers like witnesses too tired to lie. He smelled like lime and the kind of laughter that tries to outtalk a corridor. He kissed the air near my cheek, our administrative truce, and then saw the orange sun glowing on the counter like a clerk who enjoys its job too much. His pupils did that clock thing, the dilation that arrives a moment before you decide which verb you can live with. He set the shoes down gently, like returning small boats to a harbor he didn't trust, and put both palms on the table the way our therapist taught us when we needed to give words somewhere to land. The gesture is either dignity or triage. "Which question?" he asked, voice even. "Why or who?" "Why," I said, "because Matt, my emergency adult, kicks me under imaginary tables when I lead with names. If we start with who, the thermostat writes our minutes." Rowan looked at the patch of wall where the paint keeps wanting to retire without ceremony. "Because the scene wouldn't land," he said. "Because donors clapped at the wrong places and then wanted to be forgiven with gin. Because the back room at the Lark called itself a loft and we listened. Because Julian said the heat there was reliable even when we were. Because the night was cold enough to make bad ideas look charitable." "Did you kiss him?" I asked, breaking Matt's superstition like a boy with a stick and a fence. "In the stairwell," he said. "Once, small and honest and wrong. I told him the moment was better than the meaning. He laughed like a man returning a weapon to its hook. I came home." "I hate how sane that sounds," I said. "The sentence I keep for mercy that arrives before I can match its tone." We didn't sleep. We did something more humiliating and useful. We agreed to walk into daylight like men who prefer evidence with windows. At noon, the theater felt like a confession that had decided to sit upright. Stagehands blew dust off light trees and called it rehearsal. In the alley, Julian waited with a paper cup and the posture of a man prepared to pay for his verbs. He saw us both and didn't pretend surprise, my favorite trick in men who owe a room honesty. "I was coming to apologize," he said, "to you both and to whatever part of this building thinks warmth should be a strategy. He loves you," he added, nodding at Rowan. "I like being near that. I'm sorry the loft uses the same grammar as desire." "You don't get to call it ours," I said, "because cleverness is my superstition and I tithe when I'm anxious. Rehearsal is a room, a kiss is a scene, a thermostat is a switch. You don't get to be the verb in our kitchen. Julian held up his hands the way good predators do when they want you to count your knives alone. Then let me be the off switch. Rowan didn't look at him. He looked at me with the exact weight of a man choosing which door deserves his mouth. I want open windows, he said, not open doors. We left the alley with its humble weather, and I moved the kitchen chair into the middle of our floor because procedures save men when gods won't. Rowan smiled like a man relieved to be caught kindly. He came around the table and paused, always that pause, his most decent habit. I met him halfway. The first kiss carried the right weight, apology without speeches. The second slide put his fingers under my shirt and my hand at the back of his neck, the place he keeps for oaths and sleep. We didn't perform a ceremony, we used heat as a system. If I could map the rest without getting evicted by an algorithm that prefers virtue louder than accuracy, I would. Keep the inventory, breath that belonged to both of us, a belt resigning with grace, a wrist held with permission and not claim. The room did not applaud. It didn't need to. The city prefers quizzes. 2 nights later, the theater's account posted a carousel at 1:41 a.m. Hand saw light in the mirror by the prop cabinet, 4 bodies if you counted reflections. Rowan washing his hands, head down. Julian behind him, tie loosened. A stranger passing like a rumor. Me in the doorway because someone had tagged my name as if helpful were a synonym for harmless. The caption said boys being brave. Comments produced their usual certainty. I typed nothing. I turned the phone face down. I put the chair back in the center and sat until the room remembered it wasn't a witness stand. Rowan came home and handed me his phone without instructions. Delete or archive, he said. I don't want new grammar. You don't need me to erase your verbs, I said. He rested his forehead against mine like a paperweight on a better draft. 3 days later, the email arrived in fonts that have never had to apologize to a kitchen. Residency, 7 days, quiet rooms, kind windows. He forwarded the PDF with every map attached, which is how you know a man has learned where courage keeps its receipts. I want to go without disappearing, he wrote. I'll send pages, not alibis. When I get back, ask me what I wrote before what I did. I taped 2 lines under the lemon magnet because props still save us when God is off shift. Addresses in the open. A good night here voice note every day. He added a third in his careful mess. If an I can't is coming, it happens where both of us are. Night 1, wind and a sentence I decided to believe. Today the table forgave me. Night 3, nothing, and my thumb became the worst teenager in the world. I opened the thermostat app and stared at the loft's zone until the orange surrendered to gray. I put the phone face down and moved the chair. At 8:12, he called with a voice that made the kettle think there might be a god. I almost kissed a window, he said. It didn't know your name. I closed the blinds. He came back with a suitcase that didn't slam and 2 pages he treated like animals. They're not good, he said. They're mine, I said, and we performed our small religion. Paper kettle, a room that knows it isn't a lobby. He slid his hands under my shirt from behind, slower than contrition, faster than nostalgia. Here, he said into the bend of my neck, which is the only word left that has never demanded witnesses. We tried boring. We failed gracefully. We tried again. Julian learned to stand at the back of the house with his arms crossed like a man paying the bill he owes himself. He clapped exactly once after the final scene and didn't text. The thermostat remembered that off means something. The world is thorough when it thinks you've studied. At 12:05 a.m. on a Wednesday, my phone vibrated with a bureaucracy that wanted to be a confession. Schedule change proposed zone. Studio loft preferred temp overnight. 23 degrees C suggested by. Shared user J. I stared until the letters remembered they were just pixels. I wasn't a user. I was a witness with cutlery. I declined the change, the way you close a window in a storm you didn't order. At 12:59, Rowan came in with rain in his hair and a sentence ready. He asked if warmth could be kindness, he said. I told him kindness has nouns. He said he wanted to apologize in person to the room. I said the room wasn't the one who learned to sleep cold. Do you want to hate me now or later? I prefer now. I like the way you come back from it. I'm tired of coming back, I said. I want to stay. He nodded and removed the loft from his app in front of me, not as spectacle but like a man returning a key to a box that still remembers its own lock. He touched my jaw with 2 fingers, the intimacy director's sacrament, repurposed for domestic faith, and the gesture landed where it belonged. We went to bed without performing an essay on forgiveness. We used our mouths the way men do who still prefer heat to cleverness. The room did not applaud. It didn't need to. Weeks alter even honest bruises. The loft quit asking for favors in Celsius. The alley kept its posture. The city kept making rooms that want to pronounce us. I kept the kettle and the chair we move when words try to riot. On a Tuesday afternoon that pretended to be harmless, a package arrived addressed to both of us with the sender line left intentionally blank. Inside, wrapped in brown paper like contraband with good intentions, was a brass radiator key on a string. On the tag, in a tidy, unapologetic hand I recognized from call sheets, I don't keep souvenirs. I keep systems. I hung it on the hook by our door like a warning and a graduation both. Another test arrived disguised as competence. At 12:21 a.m., a push notification blinked. Energy savings tip turned down unused zones. Under it, a photo the app had auto-generated. A montage of our living room, the theater loft, and my office, arranged like a family album of warmth. The loft still showed as a ghost, disconnected but remembered. I took a breath. I took another. I archived the tip and put the kettle on, just to hear something choose steam without needing a narrative. We invited 2 friends and the habit of normalcy to dinner. The thermostat minded its manners. The chair stayed where chairs belong. After dishes, we performed the 3-minute exercise Matt prescribes. Speak until the beep, don't interrupt, answer as if time were expensive. When our minutes surrendered, Rowan stepped closer and asked, not with spectacle but with grammar, if he could touch me. I said yes. I won't draw you the rest. Algorithms prefer diagrams, and we were a map that refused to be printed. Keep the numbers that matter, 2 bodies that kept their nouns, a breath we shared because we asked, a door that understood the difference between greeting and granting. Morning behaved. It crossed the floor like a dog that had decided we remained worth guarding. I made coffee. Rowan came behind me and set his palm flat over my chest in that quiet territory between heartbeat and promise. Here, he said, less a word than a careful wait. I put my hand over his and let the day borrow our courage. By noon, the theater posted a still from the talkback, Rowan in profile mid-laugh, Julian beside him, listening like attention is a sport. The caption thanked donors and used community the way a grant application does when it means rent. I let my eyes do the smallest treason, measured the angle of an ankle toward a chair, the innocent geometry of candor that is only sometimes innocent. I didn't show Rowan. He knows that posture better than I do. He knows how to unlearn it when it matters. We tried boring again and were better at it the second week. The thermostat learned our hours and forgave our drift. The kettle kept its 7:05 appointment like a priest who hates drama. The chair returned to the wall and stayed there unless a knight asked for honesty in the middle of the room. One last retest, because the world loves to double-check its lessons. At 12:14 a.m., the loft attempted a resurrection. Emergency heat on safety override triggered. The app said a window had been left open in winter. The system was protecting what it could. I stood in the kitchen with my hand on the counter like a man holding a rail on a moving train. At 12:48, Rowan came home with his hands empty and rain in his mouth. I went back, he said, not to him, to the room. The window was open. I closed it. I told the system we're done protecting the wrong things. Do we move the chair? I asked. We can look at it, he said, and we did, long enough to let our bodies tell the truth without staging it. Then we went to bed and used heat the way we had promised to, like a system that belongs to us and not the night. Tomorrow we'll try again. Notifications will dress themselves as care. Rooms will pretend they're verbs. Julian will exist where he exists, a person, not a villain. Donors will clap in the wrong places. The city will invent quizzes for evenings that thought they'd already graduated. But when Rowan says here, my body has stopped auditioning for suspicion. If another hour offers me an orange sun blooming over a zone that isn't ours, I hope I remember the handful of humiliating, useful acts that got us through this one. Put water on. Move the chair when words try to riot. Ask why before who. Hold the breath before contact and let it finish being the scene. Then wait for the lock's small throat clearing like it's the first note in a song we can still tune to. We didn't get away with anything. We stayed. We are still staying. The loft can keep its rafters, the river can keep its absolutions, the lobby can keep its glass. We'll keep being the address. Or, on the nights we can't, the map that admits its misprints and still shows the way back. Past the awning that thinks it's a sentence. Past the elevator's red dot that loves its own memory. Into a kitchen where a chair remembers what it's for. A thermostat understands home doesn't need performance. And two hands that have done worse learn again how to touch without asking the night to edit.